Final Fantasy, one of the greatest and longest running RPG series in video game history. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s and liked playing role-playing games, you were a Final Fantasy fan. There was just no getting around it. One of my favorites has always been the first Final Fantasy released for the Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy II. Fast forward 10 years and re-released on the PlayStation 1 are two amazing titles together in a collection called Final Fantasy Chronicles, Chrono Trigger, and the now properly titled Final Fantasy IV. This is Squaresoft's Final Fantasy IV on the PlayStation 1. So what makes this game so great? After years since the last time I played it, I recently had another go at FF4. And it didn't take very long to remember why this game is awesome. Before I get into that, think back to the early 90s. The last Final Fantasy game that we had in the States was the NES. And while still a really great game, it lacked the sense of being a complete game. Not much going on besides, you're the good guys, go kill the bad guys, and level up along the way. Which brings me to one of the first reasons this game is a classic, the story. I won't spoil much or go into great detail, but this game was worlds beyond the first that we played, as far as the plot goes. Murder, betrayal, love, revenge, redemption, world domination, and even space exploration. This may not sound terribly original by today's video game standards, but back then it was like nothing we'd played before. Interesting bit of trivia, Chronicles is a bit different than the original SNES version released in the US. It's much closer to the original Japanese version. Most notably changed is the dialogue of the game and slight changes to the plot. But one famous line was still kept in. Maybe even before the story, one of the best parts of this game, in my opinion, is the musical score. The score is one of my favorites of any video game. The opening Red Wings theme, the world theme, the battle music, flying on the airship, and the ominous Golbez theme. Anytime I think of these parts of the game, the first thing aroused by my nostalgia is the music. Gameplay is just about what you'd expect from a turn-based RPG. You select one at a time what each character will do on his turn while the enemies try their best to annihilate you each encounter. Each class has their own unique abilities, with a little bit of overlap, especially in the caster classes. Players familiar with the series will recognize spells, items, classes, and abilities. Casters will learn new spells at certain levels, so it's a pretty linear leveling system with little to really no customization. There were a lot of abilities removed from the US SNES game. Cecil's Dark, Telus Recall, each of Porum and Palum's abilities, Yang had 2 more abilities, and so forth. This game is a classic, any version. The original Super Nintendo, the PS1 version, and what's cool and vouches for this game's timelessness, in my opinion, are the latest re-releases on the Game Boy DS and PSP. If you are an RPG fan and have never played this game, I can't recommend it enough. If you have played it and haven't played it in a while, scrounge up a copy and relive this legendary game.